Okay, everyone. This video is going to be a little bit more fun and intense in some ways. Stuff you've probably never seen before. I'm going to give you the straight scoop. And please ask me in class if you want some more clarity on this. But here we go. So before we solve this function, notice it has a tangent function inside of it, right? There's something you have to understand in regards to trigonometry. First of all, in trigonometry, sine is equivalent to the y-coordinate in the xy coordinate system, okay? So sine is just like y, and you'll see what I mean by that. Cosine is the x coordinate in the xy coordinate system. And so if I'm in the first quadrant here, this is quadrant 1, right? We know that y is positive and x is positive, right? Every point in here, x and y are positive. So sine and y, or sine and cosine are positive. Likewise, tangent, you see, is always sine divided by cosine by definition. So if I have positive divided by positive, it's positive. So that was already a lot I threw at you, but let's just keep going on here. In quadrant 2 over here, I know my y coordinate is still positive. I'm still going up to get there, right? So I know sine is positive, but because I had to go left, cosine, remember cosine goes with x, sine goes with y, so if the x is negative, because I went left, I know cosine is negative. Again, y goes with sine, so sine is positive. And tangent, which is sine divided by cosine, well, positive divided by negative is negative as well. And so you're going to have to remember that sine is positive in quadrant 2, cosine is negative, tangent therefore is negative. If we go to quadrant 3, we will note that in here I went not only left, which is negative, I also went down to get in this quadrant. So both sine and cosine, you see, are going to be negative. And tangent, because it's the sine divided by the cosine value, what is negative divided by negative? Well, it's positive. And finally, in quadrant 4, because I went to the right, cosine, you see, is going to be positive. Because remember, that goes with your x coordinate. Sine is going to be negative because I had to go down. And tangent, because I have different signs again, I'm going to get a negative for tangent. Now that's going to come into play, as you can see in our first problem. Here we go. So how would I solve this? Well, you're going to solve this just like any other equation. The goal here is to get the tangent theta there by itself, first of all. So couldn't we just simply divide both sides by -2? And therefore, the tangent of theta equals -2 divided by -2 is +1. Okay? And to find theta, I'm now going to do a tangent inverse on both sides, because tangent inverse, of course, is the inverse of tan. So I'm left with theta equaling the tangent inverse of 1. And here's where your teacher should allow you to use a calculator. And we're going to use a calculator to figure this one out. We want to do the tangent inverse of -1. Here we go. Let me find my calculator. So notice, -2 divided by -2 is 1. And when I do the tangent inverse on the answer, which is 1, I get 45 degrees. So one of my answers is 45 degrees. But there is a big but here. We just figured out in quadrant 1, going from here at a 45-degree angle is one of our answers, right? But notice, tangent can also be +1 in quadrant 3. So what would be a 45 going down this way? It's going to be, follow the purple, a 180 plus another 45 from there. So again, we have a 45 answer that can also be in quadrant 3 since tangent is positive, you see there. Okay, so going back to my calculator, that's why I took 45, I added 180 and got 225. Now notice it works out. If I do the tangent of 225, I get positive 1. If I do the tangent of 45, I get positive 1. And we have, therefore, two answers, you see. If the tangent of theta is supposed to be 1, we know it could be 45 degrees as well as 225 degrees. Okay? Pretty intense stuff. You definitely want to watch this video, guys, probably more than once, and ask questions in class about this, okay? Anyways, let's do one more problem, and we'll be done here. So look at this one right here. Well, there are a couple ways to start this one, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to distribute this 2 here, divide it into both of them. Let's see what we get. Negative 2 divided by 2 here, minus square root 3 divided by 2 this way. All I did was divide by that 2, right? It still equals negative 1 plus cosine theta. Okay? Now, what is negative 2 divided by 2? It is negative 1. Minus square root of 3 over 2. That, of course, equals negative 1 plus cosine theta. Solving for cosine theta, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Remember, when you do these trig functions, guys, you always want to solve for the theta, the trig function by itself, and then you're going to be able to do an inverse trig function on it. And as you can see, negative 1 plus 1 is 0, which makes it very convenient. I have negative square root of 3 over 2 equal to cosine of theta. Notice cosine is negative. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a cosine inverse, okay, on both sides. And that's going to give me theta. So theta is going to equal the cosine inverse of whatever the negative square root of 3 over 2 is. Okay, let's get to our calculator. Notice, once I did negative square root of 3 over 2, I got a negative 0.866, which is a number you'll start memorizing and recognizing, believe it or not, guys. And when I did the cosine inverse on that negative square root of 3 over 2, I got 150 degrees. Now, what I did was I subtracted it from 180 to get 30. And then I added 30 to 180 to get my second answer, 210. Now, relax. Let me explain what I did again. First, let's focus on the initial answer. Do you agree that cosine inverse of negative square root of 3 over 2 is 150? Okay, well, what that means is, you see, here's my coordinate system. I just figured out if I did 150 degrees right here, I know I got one of my answers, negative square root of 3 over 2. Okay? Well, do you agree that the reference angles, we like to call it right here, is 30 degrees? And the thing I discussed with you right here was, follow the blue, guys. I know cosine is negative in quadrant 2, but cosine is also negative in quadrant 3. So I have not only an answer in quadrant 2, that's my 150, but I also have to find its equivalent in quadrant 3. In other words, I need to go not 30 degrees up, but 30 degrees down. Let me show you again. Here we go. So the 150 is equivalent to 30 degrees up here. Now I'm just going to go 30 degrees down because I know my other answer is in quadrant 3, right? And so 180 plus the 30 means this angle from here all the way to there, you see, is 210 degrees. So that is why I came up with 210. as well as 150. These trig functions, in other words, guys, generally will have two answers in two different quadrants, and the trick is to figure out which quadrant you need to get into, okay? And in case you had any doubts, notice the cosine of 210 is negative 0.8666, which was our negative square root of 3 over 2 again. So was the cosine of 150, which we initially solved for. And so those are our two answers. We know that theta is 150 degrees, but it also could be 210 degrees. Okay, so this is one video, guys, you're going to want to watch more than once. It got pretty intense there, didn't it? And please remember, let's discuss and answer and ask questions in class on this material, okay? We have to get ready for that IM3 final. For some of you, you're getting ready for IM3 for summer school. See you in class.